I was tucking Lily in when she whispered, "Grandma, they're going to take your money." The nightlight turned her 9-year-old face into a little moon, earnest, frightened, far too wise for the hour. "What did you hear, sweetheart?" I kept my voice soft, steady. "I went for water," she said, eyes flicking toward the door as if Allison and Victor might appear. Even though they were hundreds of miles away on a business trip, they were in Dad's office. He said, "You're too old to handle everything." They found a special lawyer who can help them take care of it. I smoothed her blanket to buy a few seconds. At 68, I thought I'd aged out of surprises. Yet here I was, lungs refusing to move, thoughts scattering like birds. "That sounds like grown-up talk," I said gently, complicated and easy to misunderstand. But even as the reassurance left my mouth, old puzzle pieces began to click. Allison's sudden attentiveness, Victor's curious questions about how I paid bills after Harold died, the insistence that I should sell the house and find something simpler. They sounded helpful. They looked like love. Perhaps they were neither. "Are you mad at them?" Lily asked. "No, my love," I lied. "Grown-ups discuss scary things sometimes. It doesn't always mean what it sounds like." She yawned. I tucked Penguin, the frayed, stuffed bird she adored, beneath her arm and kissed her forehead. "Sleep. Big day tomorrow." I closed her door and let the mask slip. My hands shook on the banister. For years I had smoothed paths, for Allison paid for the wedding that outshone the marriage, helped with a down payment on a house built for photographs, more than for living, covered private school tuition, patched emergencies that arrived with calendar regularity. I told myself I was lucky to be needed. I told myself this is how mothers love. My phone chimed. A text from Allison. "Hope Lily isn't any trouble. Meetings are going great. Victor says this could be life-changing." Life-changing for whom? I replied with something bland, set the phone down, and stared through the living room window at the street where we'd raised Allison, where Harold had taught her to ride a bike, where grief had emptied me out, and routine had filled the space. I had stayed here because the house held our life the way a shell holds the echo of the sea. Maybe that echo was exactly what they planned to sell. In the kitchen drawer, beneath warranties and neat stacks of bills, lay an old card, Thomas Whitaker-esque. Harold's longtime attorney and the executor who had steadied me when cancer took him. I hesitated only a heartbeat before dialing. It was late, but this wasn't business. This was survival. "Margaret," he answered on the third ring, voice warm with surprise. "Is everything all right?" "I don't know," I said, amazed at my own calm. "But I think I need your help." I relayed what Lily had overheard. Silence lengthened on his end, heavy and professional. If accurate, Thomas said, "At last it's serious. They could attempt a conservatorship claim, diminished capacity, seek temporary control pending a hearing. It can move quickly if they've prepped the ground." Prepped the ground. I saw Victor offering to organize my files last month. I remembered signing a tax return Allison's accountant had handled as a favor. I hadn't reviewed it closely. Trust in my family had become the easiest way to be careless. "I can't leave Lily," I said. "They left her with me." "I'll come to you," he replied. 9 o'clock. We'll begin with documentation and safeguards." When I ended the call, I made tea I didn't want and stood very still in the quiet kitchen. Rage arrived not as shouting fire, but as a clean, cold line inside my chest. They thought I was a soft target, grieving, grateful pliant. They had mistaken grief for weakness and gratitude for surrender. I climbed the stairs and paused at Lily's door. She slept on her side, fingers curled around Penguin, breathing even untroubled for now. I made a promise I hadn't known I was waiting to make. Not only will I keep what Harold entrusted to me, I will keep her safe. Whatever comes next will be chosen with Lily's future in mind. In my room, I opened my laptop. Account statements, notes. By morning, I would have a list, banks to contact, thresholds to lock, documents to gather, evaluations to schedule. At 9, Thomas would ring the bell. By noon, there would be a plan. They wanted a game. Game on. At 9 on the dot, Thomas's silver sedan eased against the curb as the school bus chuffed away with Lily. I opened the door before he could knock. He took one look at my posture, back straight, jaw set, and nodded as if we'd already won the first skirmish by the simple act of refusing to cower. "Good morning, Margaret." He shrugged out of his overcoat, eyes taking in the neat room with a veteran's sweep. "May we use the dining table?" We could and did. I placed a yellow legal pad, a ballpoint, and a stack of file folders between us like provisions spread for a siege. The word didn't frighten me anymore. It clarified things. This wasn't melodrama. It was preparation. "We'll move in 3 lanes. Thomas began, his tone crisp but humane. "First, capacity documentation, contemporaneous, independent, unimpeachable. Second, financial controls, locks on doors they might try to open. Third, evidence. If they're actively plotting, we need proof." I nodded. "Tell me exactly what to do." He almost smiled. "You always were the easiest client to advise." Lane 1, capacity. He phoned from my landline, leaving short messages that sounded like chess, not panic. Dr. Priya Narayanan, Geriatrics and Cognitive Assessment, urgent slot requested today if possible. A second call, Dr. Alan Keats, Neuropsychology Comprehensive Evaluation, will take your first cancellation. A third, Ethan Clark, Forensic Accounting, on-site file review, tax return reconciliation. He hung up and wrote 3 names in tidy caps across the top of his legal pad. You pass these evaluations with the ease I expect, and any petition claiming you can't manage your affairs looks like theater. I can bring the house down with my checkbook alone, I said dryly. I've been balancing it since coupons were still worth clipping. Then we'll let the professionals say so. His eyes softened just for a breath. And it will feel different hearing it from them. Lane, 2 controls. He slid the pad aside. Do you have online banking on that laptop? Yes. Log in. We'll set transaction alerts, daily balance emails to both you and me. Hard holds on transfers above a threshold. He paused. Would you be comfortable with a $1,000 cap without in-person verification? I thought of Victor's expensive watch and Allison's quiet panic when tuition bills loomed. Yes. We called the bank together, explained that I wished to add in-branch verification for anything over that number and freeze external link changes for 10 business days. The manager, Mr. Gentry, recognized my name, 50 years of good standing, had not been for nothing, and promised to flag my profile personally. When he asked whether I'd lost a card or feared theft, Thomas answered for me. We are preventing confusion, he said mildly, not cleaning it up. I liked that phrasing. It was what a gardener said in spring stakes set, before the wind could break the stems. Next, Thomas had me open a new email address used solely for financial notices. Compartmentalize, he advised. If Allison or Victor have been casually monitoring your regular email, don't bristle. Adult children sometimes do. We reduce their line of sight. We created a simple passphrase only I would remember. Not a pet's name, not a birthday. A sentence Harold used to say when life felt too large, one hill at a time. Power of attorney, Thomas asked. I never granted one. Good. Let's keep it that way until we choose otherwise. He asked for a folder labeled taxes, and I brought him the file I'd kept in the credenza since Harold died. I'd always been a tidy filer, part pride, part superstition. Order in paper felt like a bulwark against chaos in life. Thomas flipped through the last 3 returns, my neat paper clips, a breadcrumb trail. He paused at the most recent. Prepared by Whitestone Advisors, filed electronically under your digital signature. He looked up. When did you authorize them? My daughter said their accountant offered to... The sentence hollowed out as I heard myself. I hadn't authorized them in any formal sense. I'd nodded to Allison at the kitchen island, then typed my name on a tablet when she brought it by between errands. Thomas didn't scold. He simply marked the page with a blue flag. Mr. Clark will reconcile this against your actual accounts. We'll need originals for anything you didn't personally receive. Lane 3 evidence. Finally, he said, if they're consulting counsel today, we want to know. Not for voyeurism, but to establish the timeline and nature of their intent. Do you object to hiring an investigator? I object to not hiring one, I replied. He smiled fully, then quick and rare. Scarlett Doyle. Ethical, discreet, and allergic to grandstanding. May I? He dialed, introduced himself, introduced me, then handed me the phone. A low, capable voice came on the line. Mrs. Aldridge, Thomas says you need eyes in Las Vegas. I have a colleague there who works quietly. What do you need to know, and by when? Whether my daughter and son-in-law are meeting with attorneys regarding conservatorship or trust control. Locations if possible. No home or hotel room surveillance, only public spaces. And copies of anything you can legally gather. Understood, she said, already moving. Text me their names and hotel. I'll be in touch by end of day. We hung up and I felt the kitchen settle around me like a room that had been re-leveled. The walls hadn't shifted. My sense of plumb had. Thomas gathered the files. 2 more practicalities, new locks, and if you have valuables you wouldn't want in the house should anyone arrive with a locksmith and a court paper, move them off-site. Today. He stood, and for a moment we were simply 2 people late in life who had known each other long enough for formality to fall away. You're not alone, he said. I know, I answered, and discovered that I did. By noon, the day had become a lattice of small decisives. The locksmith's van nosed into the drive at one, a cheerful man named Roberto, whose hands moved like someone who had rebuilt more than doors. While he worked, I opened the narrow drawer in Harold's study where the watches rested, his father's railroad timepiece, the slim gold dress watch I had saved for and given him on our 10th anniversary. I felt no clutch of panic as I lifted each one, only an odd, lucid gratitude that the objects had been loved and would now be protected until love, not strategy, decided where they went next. The curio cabinet yielded the velvet box's earrings for our 25th, the sapphire pendant he'd chosen the day Allison was born. I had worn them seldom and remembered every time. Memory is a ledger no one can falsify. By 2:30, Roberto handed me a small nest of new keys, each tag labeled in his blocky script. "Code set," he said, nodding toward the new keypad beside the back door. "You can change it any time. Cameras cover entries, not private spaces. Motion alerts to your phone." After he left the house, acquired a strange humming quiet. I recognized from the days after Harold's last hospitalization, the moment the machines leave and you stand listening to your own breath, learning the new pitch of your life. At 3, I drove to the bank. Mr. Gentry met me in the lobby with the deference banks reserved for old money and older decency. He produced the long, thin key used for safe deposit boxes, and together we descended to the vault, where the air tasted like coins in old envelopes. "I'll need 2 boxes," I said. "One for documents, one for heirlooms." He obliged without comment. In the small private room with the table and the tiny lamp, I arranged what mattered most: copies of birth certificates and Harold's will, the deed to the house insurance policies, the thin USB drive Thomas had left me for scanned PDFs, and most precious, the photograph Lily had taken last winter of me blowing on a mug of tea, steam making a halo that made her giggle. I tucked it atop the papers as if paper could feel comfort. The second box received the watches, the jewelry, a folded inventory written in my hand. I imagined Allison's face if she opened the curio and found gaps. Better she worry about what I might know than imagine I knew nothing. At 4, my phone buzzed as I pulled into the drive. A text from Scarlet Locals confirmed Allison and Victor arrived at the offices of Emerson and Rolfe Elder Law Boutique at 2:10 p.m. Meeting lasted 1 hour. Audio from the lobby suggests conservatorship was discussed. Pulling more. We'll send materials tonight. The words should have scalded. Instead, they steadied. Doubt that thin trickle that had tried to dampen resolve. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe your overreacting evaporated under the heat of confirmation. I thanked Scarlett and forwarded the update to Thomas, who responded with a simple, "Good. Keep receipts." Lily tumbled through the door just after 4:30, backpack bouncing, cheeks bright. "Ma?" We learned about the water cycle and my drawing got put on the science board. Did it? I knelt to her, greedy for the ordinary, for the gentle gravity that children give a room simply by breathing in it. "Tell me everything." She did, including the precise number of clouds she had drawn, 7, because 7 is lucky, and the exact color of the construction paper border, not red, not pink, raspberry. We ate apples at the counter while I pretended to puzzle over homework problems whose answers I already knew, content to let her show me the steps. Only when she disappeared to feed Penguin 2 imaginary sardines did I check my phone again. Another message from Scarlett, second meeting at 3:45 at Whitstone Advisors. Topic overheard, moving assets out of reach, pending hearing. Have the hallway audio, sending secure link shortly. Whitstone Advisors, the name for my tax return. A tiny flare of anger lit in the center of my chest and burned clean. Not rage that blinds, the other kind, the one that illuminates where to place your feet. At 6, Thomas called. 2 appointments confirmed for tomorrow morning, he said. Dr. Narayanan at 8, Dr. Keats at 9:30, Ethan at your home at noon. Do you want me to drive you? I can manage, I said. But meet me for the neuropsychology, please. I'd like a witness who isn't family. Of course. After Lily slept, Penguin tucked beneath her chin, raspberry construction paper clutched to one side, like a prize ribbon, I sat at the dining table where the day had begun and opened the secure link Scarlett had sent. The audio was ordinary in its quality, the hush of an upscale lobby, shoe heels, a printer whir. My daughter's voice, bright and controlled, drifted in as if it had always belonged there. Temporary orders if necessary, Allison was saying. We want to make sure nothing gets moved around. Victor, she's sentimental. That house is full of things that will be hard to track once they start walking. Laughter mine in another life would have forgiven the meanness of it. In this life, it was inventory. A second clip, the reception at Whitstone Advisors. A receptionist apologizing for a delay. Victor quipping about the price of expertise, the phrase asset protection threaded through like fishing line. The words weren't criminal, they were confirming, paper in the shape of intent. I closed the laptop. The kitchen clock ticked with its fussy certainty. The scent of the new keypad plastic still laced the air by the back door. On the counter, the list I had started the night before lay under the weight of a salt cellar. I added 2 items, photograph valuables now with timestamps. Print duplicate sets of today's emails, texts for vault. Then I made tea I actually wanted. Not for the caffeine, for the ritual, water poured, leaves steep, time measured, then sweetness. The next morning, Thomas met me in the waiting room of Dr. Narayanan's clinic, with the clean wood furniture and the watercolor landscapes that looked like places you could really walk. The doctor was brisk without being brusque, a woman whose hands checked my pulse as if measuring a drum line. We did the things the internet terrifies the elderly with: recall tests, clock drawing serial 7s. I felt my mind flex like a muscle that had been keeping its strength not for show but for use. When she asked me to explain my current finances in broad strokes, I did so with the simple specificity of someone who recognizes every number like a house on a familiar street. "Any difficulties managing your calendar medications, paying utilities?" she asked. "No," I said. "I like a paper calendar because crossing off boxes feels like vanquishing tiny dragons. But the utilities pay themselves." She smiled at that, and later, though she said she'd file a formal report, she said the words Thomas had predicted would feel different in my bones. "You are cognitively robust for your age, Mrs. Aldridge. No clinical concerns." Dr. Keats administered more involved tasks, pattern sequences, lists, to reorder quick decisions about hypothetical scenarios. I enjoyed it the way I had once enjoyed figuring out which coupon combinations brought the greatest grocery saving strategies that had nothing to do with grandeur and everything to do with competence. By noon, we were back at my dining table, Ethan Clark's laptop open beside my folders. He was younger than I expected, with a habit of clearing his throat before each question as if asking permission to intrude. "Let's reconcile the Whitestone return," he said gently, "with your actual statements." We did line by meticulous line. Twice he paused. "This Schedule B lists interest from an account that doesn't appear in your file." "Did you close an account at Easton Mutual?" "No." He made a note. "Then either the return is wrong or an account exists in your name that you didn't open." A second pause at a charitable deduction I hadn't made. "Do you typically donate to the Crescent Initiative?" "I don't know what that is." He whistled softly, less judgment than astonishment. "Okay. We'll request prepare files from Whitestone. If they refuse, we'll subpoena if necessary." After he left, Thomas and I sat in the gentle wreckage of paper. On the counter, Roberto's new keys glinted in their dish. The house felt like a person who had finally straightened its shoulders. "I don't want to be cruel," I said into the quiet, "but I do want to be unmistakable." "You're neither cruel nor vague," Thomas said. "You're clear, there's a difference." We drafted a simple letter to Allison and Victor, polite, neutral, and impossible to misinterpret, informing them that I had updated security at the house and would speak with them upon their return. We did not mention evaluations or recordings. Let them come home to the new topography and discover it as one discovers altitude, with a small shortness of breath that tells you things have changed even if the hills look the same. That evening, Lily and I embarked on what I framed as a game and what in truth was a rite. "Help me choose special things to keep safe," I told her, "like a museum where treasures go when they need quiet." She approached the task with the solemn delight children reserve for the adult world when it opens like a backstage door. "This?" she asked, holding the chess set Harold had taught her to move pawns on. "Yes," I said. "The nights get lonely if we don't visit, so we'll visit them again soon." We packed the items gently wrapped in old dish towels, not because I didn't own bubble wrap, but because dish towels retain the shape of the hands that use them. We drove to the bank at the edge of evening. Mr. Gentry stayed late without being asked. "Another box?" he inquired with a small smile. "Just a little more room," I said. Back home, Lily drew a map of where the museum lived. It contained a dragon and an arrow and a star. She put it on the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a lemon. "Is this a secret?" she asked. "It's a surprise," I said. "Surprises are secrets that don't hurt." She considered this with the gravity she gave to rules. "Okay, then I can keep it." After she slept, Scarlett's final message arrived. 2 more meetings. One with a financial planner who advised creating a management trust, one with a physician's office that appeared to be scheduling a capacity evaluation. "You'll receive audio and notes in the morning." I forwarded the email to Thomas and turned off the kitchen light. The house became a ship in harbor ropes, tied canvas furled, ready not for a storm. I had been in storms, but for a planned crossing. On the table lay the yellow pad we'd used that morning. I added a last line under the 3 lanes and their check marks. Remember why. Not to beat anyone, not to humiliate. To teach a lesson I hadn't taught when it would have been easier, when generosity and fear had braided themselves into something that looked like love. "Love is clear," Harold had said once after a long-ago argument about Allison's allowance. "Love has edges. It doesn't slice, but it doesn't blur." Sunday would come with its suitcases and smiles, and what did you do while we were away? We would stand in the foyer that had held birthdays and casseroles and bad news. I would point to the new keypad and the empty spaces where certain objects had always sat and invite them to the table like civilized people. And then we would talk like people who had discovered that clarity is kinder than indulgence and truer. I slept that night with the window cracked, the late March air cool enough to remind me of mountains I hadn't seen in years. The wind worked the chimes Harold had hung from the maple, a tuned hush that said, "The house is different, yes, but the home is you." I believed it and planned accordingly. Headlights slid across the living room ceiling like slow lightning when the SUV turned into the driveway. Lily sprang off the sofa. "They're here. Remember," I said softly, smoothing her hair. "I'll talk to them first. You can show them your science board after." Keys scraped at the front door, stopped. A frown paused on the other side. The bell rang, then a knock, firm and patient. I opened to find Allison travel polished and wary, Victor carrying 2 suitcases, and the confident look of a man who expects to negotiate the weather. New lock, Allison asked. I had security concerns, I said. Come in. Lily flew into her arms. Mom. We learned about condensation and I drew raspberry borders. Raspberry, Allison managed a smile. That sounds very precise. Victor set the bags down and did a quick involuntary scan of the foyer, the place where the Tiffany lamp had been the curio's familiar gleam, now muted by absence. His face didn't change. His shoulders did. Sweetheart, I told Lily, run your backpack upstairs and set out tomorrow's clothes, then we'll make cocoa. She hesitated, reading the room the way children read weather. Okay. Footsteps, the soft swing of her door. The 3 of us stood in a triangle of practiced civility. Las Vegas was productive, I asked. Allison's eyes narrowed at the name, the geography. We had meetings, she said carefully. At Emerson and Rolfe, I said just as carefully, and later at Whitstone Advisors. You discussed conservatorship and how to make sure nothing gets moved around. You also inquired about creating a management trust. Silence swallowed the foyer. Victor found a scoff. You've hired someone to follow us. I hired someone to establish the truth, I said. Only in public spaces, where there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. He was already calculating. I could see it, the angles of denial, the slope of outrage. Allison's calculation was different. A quick slide down the face of shock into a pool where the old tools deflect, soothe, reframe would reach for purchase. Mom, she began, we were only exploring options. We're worried about you living alone with so much to manage. You've been forgetful. I let the lie pass me like a draft. The kitchen, I said. Let's sit. On the table lay a stack arranged with the deliberate neatness of a place setting. Dr. Narayanan's letter, Dr. Keats's summary. Ethan Clark's preliminary findings, a single page, from the bank confirming in-branch verification for large transactions, and a polite letter Thomas had drafted to announce that I was represented by counsel. I did not raise my voice. I did not perform outrage. I slid the first page forward. Dr. Narayanan, no clinical concerns regarding my cognition. Dr. Keats' superior performance for age, sound judgment, and financial comprehension. Mr. Clark, discrepancies between my actual accounts and the return prepared by Whitstone, including interest reported on an account I did not open and a charitable deduction I did not make. Allison touched the paper as if it might burn. This is excessive. Excessive, I repeated, is strategizing to take control of my life while leaving your daughter with me and telling me your trip would be life-changing. Victor found indignation. We're your family. Family is a noun, I said. It is not a credential. His mouth thinned. You can't prove. I don't need to, I said. I have enough to show a pattern advice sought at an elder law boutique, financial planning aimed at moving assets, a scheduled capacity evaluation with a physician whose office called while you were out. Yes, the message reached my investigator. I also have my own evaluations done before any petition could be filed. What I need is clarity. And what does clarity look like to you? Allison asked, controlled again, the peacemaker who met fire with porcelain. I slid a different stack across the wood, 2 crisp copies of a single document Thomas and I had drafted. The title was simple: Going Forward. You will find my will has been revised, I said. All assets on my death will pass into a trust for Lily, managed professionally with third-party oversight until she is at least 30. During my life, I remain sole manager of my affairs. If capacity is ever questioned, an independent panel of 2 physicians and 1 attorney will decide, not family. Allison's hand tightened on the table's edge. You cut us out. I removed you from a place you tried to occupy by force, I said. That is not the same as cutting you out of my life. Whether you remain in my life depends on what you do next. Victor's laugh had no humor, so this is punishment. No, I said. This is boundary. There's a difference. And there are terms. I let the words land, then read them anyway to make them real in the room. First, no further financial support from me. Not for emergencies, investments, or cushion. You will live within your income. Second, a regular schedule for Lily Wednesdays after school. Alternate weekends, holidays shared, may not be canceled without serious cause. Third, no attempts to alienate Lily from me or to restrict our relationship. Fourth, you will send a written retraction to Emerson and Rolfe and any other firm you consulted withdrawing any exploration of conservatorship or similar control with a copy to my attorney. Fifth, transparency. If you have opened or caused to be opened any accounts in my name, you will disclose them now. Allison's eyes shone with a heat that had nothing to do with tears. This is cruel. It's precise, I said. Cruelty is careless. Precision is kindness that tells the truth. You'd really send that to a judge? Victor asked, chin up. Play lobby audio and wave your doctor notes around. If required, I said. But I'm not looking for court. I'm looking for safety. He rose half an inch from his chair, an old male trick to harvest height. You think you can lock a family out of its own inheritance? I can decide what happens to what I own, I said, and I have. Something in Allison folded, then not in defeat, but in the way an umbrella folds before it turns inside out. "We made mistakes," she said carefully, "but we were scared. The house, the accounts, it's all so much, and you've been so generous for so long. We didn't know how to talk about what happens next." "You did know," I said, quieter now. "You talked to strangers about it. You simply didn't talk to me." From the stairwell, a floorboard spoke. "Lily waiting like a small satellite for the planet's weather to stabilize." I stood and poured water into mugs, the old choreography of making cocoa, giving my hands employment while we measured the silence. "Allison," I said as the kettle clicked. "Victor, you have time to think. Tonight we will have cocoa with Lily and ask about raspberry borders. Tomorrow morning you will send the letters withdrawing your consultations. This week you and I will sit with a calendar and mark out time with your daughter that you will keep. You will also disclose any account that includes my name in any form, and then we will see." Victor stared at the papers. "And if we don't, then Thomas files, I file, and we allow strangers to define the shape of our family," I said, "which after this week may be fitting, but I would prefer that we do it ourselves." I set 3 mugs on the table as Lily patted down in socks. The air shifted as it always does when a child enters towards something the heart agrees to honor. She climbed into Allison's lap. Allison pressed her face into Lily's hair in a gesture so unpracticed and urgent it startled me with its beauty. "Mom, can I show Dad the science board?" Lily asked. "In a minute," Bug Victor said, voice rough for the first time. "In a minute." We drank in truce. Lily talked about clouds. We nodded at the right times. The cocoa cooled, the papers waited. After I sent Lily to brush her teeth and pack her backpack. When the small clatter faded, Allison stood. "I'll send the letters in the morning," she said. "We'll talk to Lily's school about a different pickup schedule, and I'll ask Whitstone for everything they filed under your name. If there's an account, you will disclose it," I said. She nodded, eyes on the blank space where the lamp had always cast its honeyed circle. "Where did it go?" "Somewhere safe," I said. "Things will return when people do." She flinched as if the sentence had been a slap, then breathed as if it had been a prayer. "Okay." Victor lingered, trying to conjure one more angle. "You know," he said finally, almost conversational, "you're different." "Yes," I said. "I am exactly the same. I stopped pretending not to be." He huffed a laugh that accepted and resented in equal measure. "Right." I walked them to the door. The new keypad's small green light watched us. At the threshold, Allison touched my sleeve. "Is there anything we can say to Lily?" "That grown-ups had hard conversations," I said, "and that we all decided on new rules so that love could breathe." She blinked. The word love had always been our stalest currency. It felt tentatively liquid again. After Lily hugged them goodnight and padded upstairs, Victor looked back from the porch. "This isn't over," he said, but without threat. More like weather, a forecast. "Of course it isn't," I said. "It's how we begin." They retreated for 3 days inside my house like penitent diplomats. No slammed doors, no raised voices. Just the quiet rearrangement of private strategies. They answered when Lily spoke, put their phones away at dinner. Watched me without speaking when I changed the keypad code again. On Wednesday afternoon, Victor found me in the garden deadheading roses. "We'll send the letters," he said. "We'll agree to the schedule, but the money—" "There is no money from me," I said. "There is your money earned or budgeted. There is Lily's future protected. Those are the categories." He looked toward the house. "It's hard to step down a ladder you built in public." "It's easier than falling," I said. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep with a paperback on her chest, Allison knocked on the doorframe of Harold's study. She sat hands folded like a student learning a new subject. "I'm sorry," she said. The words did not arrive with the performance I had braced for. They arrived like water poured into a glass. We told ourselves a story. That we were being responsible, preparing for the inevitable. But the story had a secret chapter we didn't read aloud about control, about lifestyle, about never feeling we had enough unless we had more. "Stories can be edited," I said. "Will you let us?" she asked. "I'll let you show me," I said. "Time is the editor." She nodded, then added almost shyly, "Lily wants to make pancakes with you on Saturday. Could we pencil that?" "We can ink it," I said. When she left, I texted Thomas. "Letters promised, schedule accepted, disclosures pending." He replied, "Good, send me copies, stay steady." The house exhaled. So did I. I locked the door, checked the small green light, and stood for a long time looking at the empty place where the lamp had been the pale oval on the wallpaper like a faded sun. It would glow again one day for the right reasons. Upstairs, Lily murmured in her sleep. I sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe the freckles on her nose like constellations waiting for a name. "New rules, so love can breathe," I whispered to the dark. "We can do that." The room agreed in the way rooms do when they have held both mistakes and repair. The wind pressed the maple against the glass with a sound that wasn't quite a knock and wasn't quite a lullaby. It was a reminder structures keep us, choices keep us better. Sunday had come and gone. The talk had happened. The terms had been laid like a road. Part of me feared the detours still to come. A larger part felt the particular peace of people who have finally said the true thing out loud and survived it. I turned off the lamp and went to bed. Not victorious, not vanquished, simply ready to live in the house I had remade by naming what it is. By Monday, the letters were sent. Thomas forwarded me the PDF's firm letterhead clear language. We withdraw any and all exploration of conservatorship or similar control with electronic signatures from Allison and Victor. Whitstone, prodded by Ethan's formal request, produced their prepare files, and like a magician forced to perform with the house lights, up revealed a ghost account opened with a sloppy e-signature and a client convenience email that was not mine. The bank accepted our affidavit, froze the account, and confirmed in writing that no funds had moved. Paper stops problems, Thomas said. You did the right kind of work. I began measuring time in smaller, truer units. Lily's Wednesday arrivals, the soft thud of her backpack. Saturday pancakes flipping to a rhythm Harold would have approved of. Bedtime chapters read all the way to the end instead of tomorrow, I promise. We inked the calendar, and for the first time in years, no one treated ink like pencil. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign sprouted in front of Allison's house. Lily and I drove past on our way to the library. She watched from the back seat, solemn. Will they have a swing at the new house? She asked. If they want one, I said. Swings are less about houses than decisions. Victor texted me the listing link with no commentary. The photographs were beautiful and unconvincing, all angles and granite and proof. I did not reply. We were done speaking in the dialect of display. 3 days after the house went pending, Allison called Voice Bear. We found a smaller place, she said. We can afford it. But the down payment? She stopped, corrected herself. Could we sell a few pieces of the silver, the ones that would come to me eventually? I thought of the curios pale rectangles where velvet boxes had been of Lily's dragon map on my refrigerator. No, I said gently, but I'll make you an offer that honors the principle we agreed to. Thomas drew the document the same afternoon, advance against any future inheritance, a fixed amount reducing any future share, dollar for dollar, no repayment schedule, contingent on continued adherence to the terms and on full disclosure of any account in my name. Allison read it in silence, then signed. It was the first time I'd seen her accept help without trying to braid control through it. Spring break arrived with a sky so clean it felt ironed. We flew west, just Lily and me, toward the mountains I hadn't visited since Harold had lived inside every plan. Aspen received us like a benediction. Our condominium was modest and perfect. The stovetop work the windows faced a ridge that changed color as the day turned in its slow hinge. We walked a family-friendly trail the first morning with a guide named Travis, who had the unabashed patience of people who like children. He showed Lily where mule deer had printed their soft punctuation in the thawing mud, taught her to cup her hands to hear water running under snow. In a grove of pale trunks, he explained how aspens share a root system, one organism masquerading as many. Like family, Lily said, satisfied. Like family, I agreed and decided not to lecture the trees about boundaries. At night, we lay on a blanket behind the condo looking up. A young astronomer from the Nature Center aligned his laser with a sky I could finally read. That bright one is Jupiter, he said. Lily squeezed my hand as if she'd met a celebrity. We called Allison and Victor every other evening, video brightness dialing the distance down. Lily narrated the trip in a waterfall. Allison listened without checking her watch. Victor asked good questions and waited for answers. When the screen flickered to black, a small text followed, "Thank you." It arrived without strings. I saved it anyway. On our last night, the gondola ferried us to a restaurant braided with windows and hum. Lily wore the navy dress we'd found at the thrift store, an A-line that allowed both twirling and dessert. The peaks went pink. Snow caught the last light like a held breath. "This is the best trip," she said. Mouth, serious, eyes alight. "Could we do another when the flowers come out? We could make it a tradition," I said. 2 girls, 1 mountain. "Every year," she asked. "Every year we choose to," I answered. Back home, the air felt heavier and kinder. Allison and Victor met us at the gate of an address I hadn't yet typed into muscle memory. Their new house was a craftsman with a porch that invited people to sit without performing. No pillars, no chandelier visible from the curb. A blue bike leaned against the steps, its chain oiled instead of polished. "Come see," Allison said, almost shy. Inside the walls were family photographs without symmetry, school projects that had not been curated for guests, and a fridge with the kind of magnets you don't buy at museum shops. Victor made sandwiches in a kitchen that did not request an audience. Lily moved through the smaller rooms like a creature comfortable in a burrow. After lunch, Allison walked me to the porch. I sent the disclosure, she said without preamble. There were 2 accounts Whitstone opened under advisory convenience. Both closed now. We've canceled the club. We're returning the leased car. It's A lot. It's honest, I said. She looked at the street, at a neighbor girl drawing with chalk on the sidewalk, at a maple budded tight with April. I don't miss the old house like I thought I would, she admitted. I miss who I pretended I was in it. You're allowed to like who you are without a foyer, I said. She laughed, not prettily, honestly. Will there be a day when you trust us again? There can be many days when you behave in ways I trust, I said. And then one day I'll realize I haven't checked the locks twice. That's what trust looks like at our age. She nodded, accepting the hard gift. And the things you moved, they're safe, I said. When the people in this family are safe for them, they'll come home. She didn't flinch this time. Okay. On my way out, Victor caught my arm. Ethan sent me a copy of the letter to Whitstone, he said. He didn't have to. Thank you for not torching the earth. I'm not a torching person, I said. I'm a boundary person. Boundaries keep gardens alive. He glanced at the porch swing. We're building one this weekend, he said, if you want to supervise. I always have opinions about rope knots, I replied. That night, in my own quiet kitchen, I put new copies of the letters and bank confirmations into the vault envelope. Scarlett's final report, thorough, dry, mercifully short, joined them. I left the curio empty and the inventory complete. Control is not about clutching. It's about choosing. Before bed, I stood in the garden under the maple and let the wind find the chimes. The house was still the house, but I was no longer keeping it for the promise of a future someone else would define. I was keeping it because it fit my life now. Wednesdays with a backpack, Saturdays with pancakes, late evenings with a lawyer's email that said simply, all in order. In the dark, I repeated the line Harold used to steady us when stories turned stormy, one hill at a time. It had brought us through mortgages and medicine and the long slide of a loved mind. It carried me now into this new mountain of clarity. I went inside, set the alarm, and turned out the light. The small green dot by the door glowed like a polite star. It meant only this: the boundary holds. On the other side of it, love can finally breathe. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.